Modern life asks for our full attention, and that attention can leave us feeling stretched thin. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, wrote about this in his journal almost 2,000 years ago. He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize that, and you find strength." That's the central paradox of a Stoic life. How do you build a calm, untouchable peace inside, while still showing up fully for your work, your relationships, your duties? The answer isn't to withdraw. It's a specific kind of intelligent detachment. This isn't checking out. It isn't becoming indifferent. It's about mastering your internal world so you can participate more effectively, more joyfully, in the external one. By the end, you'll have a complete set of mental shifts to find tranquility without retreating from your life. We'll see how ancient thinkers solved the puzzle of being in the world, but not of it. What it means to hold things lightly without letting go, and what a life of peaceful engagement actually looks like for someone living today. Stoic detachment starts with a filter. You take any experience and sort it into one of two categories: what's up to you and what's not. That's the dichotomy of control. Epictetus began his handbook with this. He wrote that some things are within our power and others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, whatever is our own doing. Not within our power are our body, property, reputation, position. Whatever is not our own doing, that's the anchor. It's not about ignoring the world. It's a strategy for your attention. Give it your approval. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He said, "Remember to retire into this little territory of your own mind. Above all, don't be distressed. Be your own master and look at things as a man, as a human being, as a citizen, as a mortal creature." He's talking about stepping back to view things from a distance. That little territory is your inner citadel. You can watch a thought arrive like a messenger at the gate and decide whether to let it in. That's your faculty of choice, what the Stoics called proherses. It's your core capacity to say yes or no. Take a common flashpoint. You're driving, someone cuts you off. The initial impression is immediate. Danger, disrespect, anger floods your system. That's automatic, but right there, in the half-second before you lean on the horn, there's a gap. In that gap, you can observe the impression. You can note, my heart is racing, my face feels hot. I have the thought that this person is rude. You don't have to argue with the feeling. You just acknowledge it, and in that acknowledgement, you create a separation between the event and your full emotional endorsement. You haven't withdrawn. You're still present, alert to the road, but you've detached from the story your mind instantly wanted to tell. The same applies to a frustrating email. The words appear on the screen, your stomach tightens. The initial impression is criticism or unfairness. But instead of firing back a reactive reply, you create that distance. You close the laptop, you take a walk, you let the raw impression settle. Now you can evaluate, is this actually an attack or is it poorly worded feedback? What part of this is useful? What's my best, most professional response? By inserting that pause, you move from being a passenger of your emotions to the pilot of your actions. So take a moment, recall a recent strong emotional reaction, a difficult conversation, bad news, a social slight. Replay that moment. Now try to identify that tiny space, that potential gap you might have missed. What would it have looked like to observe the impression first, to see the feeling as a temporary visitor instead of becoming the feeling itself? That observation is a skill. And like any skill, it grows with practice. It turns life's inevitable friction into an opportunity not for suffering but for self-command. The Stoics had this idea of loving reality. A love of your fate, they called it Amor Fati, and it sounds extreme to love a loss, a setback, but that's where detachment shifts. it's not just accepting things. It's not saying fine and moving on. It's an active engagement, a creative one, with every single event, especially the obstacles. You start to see everything that happens as necessary material. The exact fuel you need to build who you're becoming, so the obstacle becomes the way. A challenge isn't a disruption to your peace anymore, it's the arena. Where you practice peace, where you demonstrate courage or cultivate patience. Friedrich Nietzsche later talked about this, but the heart of it is Stoic. Marcus Aurelius wrote about accepting nature's will. He said a blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything thrown into it, so you look at your life. Not as random good and bad events, but as a continuous stream of raw material, all of it useful. Take a promotion, you work hard, and it goes to someone else. The first impression is rejection, unfairness. Passive acceptance might be shrugging, saying that's life, but carrying that quiet resentment. Amor Fati is different. It asks you to lean in with curiosity. What does this cleared path now allow? Does it show you a skill you need? Does it free you to consider a different role? Or a different path entirely, one that aligns more with your strengths? It reframes the setback as a directional signal, not a dead end or a daily frustration. Your planned weekend falls apart, an unexpected obligation. You could spend the whole time fighting the reality, which just doubles the suffering. Amor Fati invites you to embrace the new shape of the day. What virtue can you practice here? Flexibility, patience, maybe finding a small joy in the unexpected. By loving the fate, not the superficial pleasure, but the deeper opportunity, you disarm it. It can't derail you because you're using its energy to move forward. So there's a question. What's one circumstance in your life right now where you could practice viewing it with Amor Fati? Not pretending it's wonderful, but asking stubbornly and creatively, what is this for? How can this too become part of my fire? That mindset turns life from a battle to be won into a craft to be mastered, with every experience as your essential tool. The view from above, it's a Stoic exercise. You picture yourself rising up, looking down on your neighborhood, then your city, the continent. The lines blur, the oceans become these vast blue spaces. The planet is just a marble hanging in the dark. Marcus Aurelius practiced this. He wrote reminders to himself. He said to look at the stars as if you were running alongside them. To think of the endless change in the universe, how short the body lasts, the immense eternity before and after. He was zooming out to a timescale of millennia, a physical scale of galaxies, and from there, your urgent meeting, that heated argument, the social slight from last night, it all recedes, it doesn't vanish. It's placed in its true context. Your life becomes a single, brief point in an endless stream, and you see everyone else's point too. That shrinks petty anxieties. It expands your sense of connection. You're not withdrawing, you're gaining the perspective to engage more wisely, with less personal drama. So how do you use it? Next time you're spiraling over a work conflict, pause, close your eyes for a moment, visualize your office building from a satellite's view, then the city as a grid of lights. Then the continent, the planet, the solar system. That person's harsh comment is now a sound wave, in one room, on one floor of one building, on a speck of dust orbiting a star. Does that mean the issue is unimportant? No. It means your emotional storm about it is disproportionate. The energy for resentment can be redirected toward a clear, calm solution. Or take social comparison. You scroll and see a perfect vacation, a new promotion. From this view, you see two human beings on the same tiny world, each navigating their own brief journey, each presenting a curated highlight. Your envy loses its edge. It's replaced by a quieter curiosity. What's my actual path? What do I truly value, not what the feed tells me to value? This practice fosters a profound gratitude for your moment of consciousness here, for the shared project of being human on this little world. So tonight or the next time a problem feels all-consuming, try it. Step outside, look up at the night sky, or close your eyes and take that mental flight. See your worry for what it is, a temporary event in a long and beautiful story. Stoicism has this fifth principle. It's about detaching your worth from the scoreboard. Not from the effort, but from the outcome. Your value isn't in the trophy. It's not in the promotion or in getting the perfect reaction from someone. Your value is in the integrity of your attempt, in the courage you bring to the effort, in the excellence of your process. That distinction is critical. It frees you to act with everything you have because you're not clinging to a specific result. You pour your heart into the work, but you hold the outcome with an open hand. Seneca wrote about this. He talked about preparing your mind for any fortune. He said we should want what happens rather than try to make happen what we want. It's not about expecting the worst. It's about removing the condition you place on your own peace. Your peace isn't something you earn at the finish line. You bring it to the starting block. Epictetus used the analogy of an actor. Your job, he said, is to act well the part given to you. Choosing the part is another's. You can't control the length of your role. You can't control the audience's reaction or whether the production is a success. You can only control the quality of your performance. Your commitment to the craft, that shift in focus, it changes everything. Think of an athlete before a big race. If their whole identity is tied to the gold medal, the pressure is immense. Every step is heavy with fear, the fear of not being enough. But if their focus is on the process, the discipline, the perfect form in their lane, the energy changes. They're free to run their absolute best. The result becomes information, not validation. Apply that to preparing for a job interview. The outcome isn't within your power. The hiring committee's decision, the other candidates, the budget, those are external. What's within your power is your preparation, researching the company, refining your examples, practicing your answers with clarity and honesty, showing up on time, rested and present. You can do all of that with excellence, no matter what the final email says. The same goes for a difficult conversation. You can't control the other person's response. You can control your intention to communicate with kindness and honesty. You can prepare your thoughts. You can listen actively. You commit to the action of clear, compassionate communication. The resolution is something you create together, not a solo achievement. So take a goal you have right now, professional, personal, creative. Draw a simple line down the middle of a mental page. On one side, list all the actions, the efforts, the attitudes that are truly within your power. Your research, your practice, your courage to begin, your persistence, your ethical choices. On the other side, list the desired outcomes that aren't fully within your power. The specific result, the timing, the recognition, the approval of others. Your job is to pour your energy entirely into that first column, to find your pride and your peace there. The second column, you watch it with interest but without attachment. You learn from it, but you don't let it define you. That's how you engage with the world fully, without being broken by it. You run your race with everything you have, and you respect the finish line, whatever it turns out to be. The key to contentment might not be getting what you want. It might be wanting what you get. That's the sixth principle, the discipline of desire. It's a radical recalibration of what we chase. Stoicism says our restlessness, that sense of lack, isn't from a shortage of things. It's from a misalignment. Our wants are misaligned. We're trained to desire the next thing, the newer version, the different circumstance. The Stoics called this living in accordance with nature. And part of that means recognizing what is already sufficient, what's already present, what's already enough for a good life. It's not about settling for less. It's about deeply valuing the more that you already possess. Epictetus put it bluntly, "Don't seek for events to happen as you wish," he said. "Wish for events to happen as they do. And your life will go smoothly." At first, that sounds like resignation, passive, but look closer. He's talking about your internal wish, your desire. He's pointing you to reform that inner pull, to align it with reality as it unfolds. Your happiness then isn't a future destination. It's not contingent on a specific outcome. It becomes a present moment practice of valuing the material of your actual life. Now contrast that with modern consumer culture. It's a constant hum. A machine designed to manufacture dissatisfaction. It shows you the idealized vacation, the pristine home, effortless success, and it whispers that your current experience is incomplete. The Stoic move is to step out of that narrative consciously, to look at your simple meal and see not a lack of gourmet ingredients, but nourishment. Flavor, the privilege of having food at all, to consider your current health, even with its ordinary aches, and feel gratitude for the functioning of your body. Rather than longing for the peak fitness of a decade ago, to look at your existing relationships with all their imperfections and desire to be fully present within them. Rather than fantasizing about more exciting connections, the practice is deceptively simple. It begins with a brief inventory. Right now, without moving, name 3 things already present in your life that you can practice desiring more fully, not in a general, grateful way, but with specific, focused attention. It could be the quiet of the room you're in, the reliability of a skill you've honed over years, the steadfast presence of an old friend. For a moment, stop wanting those things to be different, or more or better. Simply want them to be exactly as they are. See them not as placeholders for a better future, but as the very substance of a good life now. This discipline of desire doesn't extinguish ambition. It purifies it. It ensures you're running towards something of real value, not just running away from a sense of never having enough. Stoics had this skill, social detachment. It's how you stay engaged with people, with your work, with everything, but still keep your own emotional independence. How you can be kind, you can be just, without getting caught up in the drama, without getting pulled into other people's negativity or their changing opinions. It's not about being cold, it's about protecting that inner space so you can actually be a better friend, a better partner. The Stoics were social. They believed in duty, in connection. But they also saw that other people's actions are a major source of our distress. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this constantly. He said you can't be harmed by what others do, only by your own judgments about what they do, and you can choose not to be harmed, even if they blame you, even if they speak badly about you. Your character is still yours. Your tranquility is still yours. That's the anchor. Your worth isn't a popularity contest. It's an internal thing, based on your own virtues in practice. Take a difficult family member, someone whose comments always sting. The usual reaction is to prepare a defense, to rehearse arguments, to try and change their mind. Social detachment shifts that. It says your only concern is your own conduct. You can listen, you can respond with patience, or state a simple boundary, calmly. You can decide not to take in their criticism if it's not true. You're responsible for your actions, for being respectful, for acting with integrity. You're not responsible for their reactions or their moods or what they think of you. You engage, but you're not entangled. It's the same online, a harsh comment, a negative review. It feels like an attack. Social detachment is that pause. You observe the impression, then you apply the filter. Is this person's opinion within my power? No. Is my reaction, my judgment, my choice to engage or not? Yes, that is. You can look for any useful grain in the feedback without letting the delivery ruin your day. You can choose not to let a stranger's keyboard dictate your inner state. Your peace is worth more than that. The goal is to act from your own principles. Justice and kindness, no matter what comes back. So think of a relationship where you feel overly reactive, where your mood seems tied to someone's approval or their behavior, a colleague, a friend, maybe someone online. Apply this lens for a moment. What if your only task in that dynamic was to govern your own actions with virtue? To let go of managing their perception or controlling their response, how would that change your next interaction? This social detachment is the final piece. It lets you move through the world connected but not captive, contributing but not consumed. It completes it, a life with inner freedom, right in the middle of everything. The Stoics had this principle, the eighth one, called Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of difficulties. It sounds like pessimism. It feels counterintuitive. But it's a tool for detachment. It's not about expecting the worst to happen. It's about taking away the worst's power to surprise you, to paralyze you. By mentally rehearsing challenges, you inoculate yourself against panic. You reduce that anxious attachment to how things are right now, and in doing that, you find a deeper appreciation for the present. A quiet confidence for the future. Seneca wrote about this. He told his friend Lucilius to set aside certain days where he would have only the plainest food, the coarsest clothes. To practice poverty, he said, is to be rich. He wrote about contemplating exile, the loss of reputation, even illness, not to dwell in misery but to see a crucial truth. That within himself he would still be whole. He would still have his reason, his character, his capacity for virtue. The external thing we fear to lose is stripped away in our imagination. And we see the person who remains. That person is resilient. That person can adapt. That discovery is the source of true strength. It lets you engage with your possessions, your status, your relationships with gratitude. Not with a clutching fear. So how does this work now in a modern life? It's a brief, deliberate mental exercise. You don't dwell for hours. You spend a few minutes with clear intention. Take a common modern dependency, your technology. Imagine your primary device fails completely. The hard drive crashes unrecoverable. All your work files, your photos, your contacts gone. Feel that initial jolt of anxiety. Now mentally walk through the steps. You would breathe. You would assess what backups you do have. You would contact support. You would begin the slow process of rebuilding. The world would not end. Your essential relationships would remain. Your ability to solve problems would remain. You would adapt. By visualizing this process, you accomplish two things. First, you're likely prompted to check your backups right now, which is a prudent action. Second, and more importantly, you detach a little from the device itself. It becomes a useful tool, not a lifeline your sanity depends on. Apply it to a professional fear. Visualize not getting the promotion you're hoping for. Sit with the feeling of disappointment for a moment, then walk forward. What would you do next? You would re-evaluate your path. You might update your resume, explore new opportunities, or double down on skill building. You would have conversations. You would continue to contribute value because your worth isn't tied to that single title. The rejection becomes a data point, not a definition. When you've mentally rehearsed this scenario, the actual news, if it comes, loses its sting. It's a familiar path. You've already navigated it in your mind. You can respond with clarity, not react with shock. The practice cultivates a profound, active gratitude. By consciously imagining the absence of something, your health, your home, a loved one's presence, you suddenly see its presence with new eyes. That morning coffee isn't routine. It's a gift. The familiar voice of a family member isn't background noise. It's a treasure. Premeditatio Malorum doesn't create fear. It dissolves the fear of loss by making you intimately acquainted with your own capacity to endure and to find meaning beyond any single circumstance. So here's a reflective prompt. Bring to mind a manageable concern, something that causes a low-grade worry. It could be a financial fluctuation, a minor health checkup, a difficult conversation on the horizon. For just a minute, allow yourself to mentally walk through it. Imagine the feared outcome has occurred. Then, step by step, visualize your calmest, most resilient self navigating the aftermath. What is the first practical thing you do? Who do you talk to? What inner resource do you draw upon? See yourself not just surviving but adapting. When you open your eyes, you'll carry a quiet assurance. The thing itself may still be uncertain, but your relationship to it has changed. You've touched your own resilience, and from that place you can engage with your actual day, not with fear, but with a grounded and grateful presence. The Stoics saw anxiety as something that almost always belongs to a time that isn't now. Regret pulls you back, worry throws you forward. Both are a kind of mental absence. A withdrawal from the only reality you can actually live in, which is this moment. This ninth principle is the ultimate grounding technique. It's the practice of bringing your attention back to the sphere where your will and action can actually operate. Right here, right now, it's not a mystical idea, it's intensely practical. It's detachment from the phantom worlds of what was and what might be, an attachment to the tangible reality of what is. Marcus Aurelius returned to this idea again and again in his private writings. He told himself to restrict yourself to the present. He wrote that you could cut away all the noise, the clutter of thoughts about what's to come or what's already past, and focus only on the current action. Perform every action as if it were the last action of your life, he advised, with seriousness, with feeling, with justice. That last part is crucial. It's not about frantic intensity. It's about dignified, complete engagement with the single thing in front of you. In that focused state, anxiety finds no foothold. There's simply no room for it. Think about the last time you felt truly anxious. The feeling likely wasn't about the physical reality surrounding you in that instant. It was about a meeting tomorrow, a conversation from yesterday, a bill due next week. Your body was in one place, but your mind was time traveling to a place of potential trouble. The Stoic move is to notice that departure and gently guide your attention back to the sensation of your feet on the floor, to the quality of the light in the room, to the specific, manageable task your hands are doing. This is where your power resides, not in rewriting the past, not in controlling a future that is still formless, but in acting with virtue in the present. The application is beautifully simple, though not always easy. It means having a conversation and truly listening. Not rehearsing your next point while the other person is still speaking. Not letting your mind wander to your to-do list. It means taking a walk and feeling the air on your skin. Noticing the shapes of the clouds or the rhythm of your breath, instead of mentally replaying an argument or planning a presentation. It means washing the dishes and feeling the warmth of the water. Hearing the clink of the plates, seeing the soap bubbles catch the light, instead of ruminating on a problem at work. In that full immersion, a subtle magic happens. The weight of elsewhere lifts. The task itself, no matter how mundane, becomes dignified. It becomes enough. You are not avoiding your responsibilities by focusing on the dishes. You are practicing the very skill that will allow you to meet those larger responsibilities with clarity later. You are training your mind to be where you are. So when you do sit down to plan that presentation, your mind isn't scattered across 10 different worries. It's present, it's capable, so here is a direct challenge. Pick one ordinary activity in your day-to-day. It could be making your morning coffee, driving to an appointment, eating a meal, or even just brushing your teeth. For the duration of that activity, commit to being fully there. When your mind inevitably drifts to a past mistake or a future concern, acknowledge the thought without judgment. Then gently return your attention to the sensory details of the present action, the smell of the coffee grounds, the feel of the steering wheel, the taste and texture of your food, the sound of the brush. Do this not as an exercise in perfection, but as an experiment in presence. Notice what happens to the background hum of anxiety when you stop feeding it with stories about other times. You might just find that the present moment, fully inhabited, is far more spacious and peaceful than you ever realized. There's a 10th principle. It's about building an internal compass. Something that isn't swayed by what other people think. This is detachment from praise and blame. Both flattery and criticism are external events. They happen around you. But your integrity, the commitment to doing the right thing, that's the ground you stand on. The Stoics called these things indifferent. Not that they don't matter at all, but that they have no power to change your moral worth. Your worth is determined by your actions, your choices, not by the applause or the boos from the stands. Epictetus had an image for this. He said the philosopher is like a rock the waves crash against. It stands unmoved while the fury of the water flows all around it. You are the rock. The praise and blame are the waves. They can be loud, they can be forceful, but they cannot move you from your foundation. Unless you let them, your job isn't to stop the waves. It's to become so solid in your own purpose that their impact is just noise. This isn't about arrogance. It's not about dismissing all feedback. It's about receiving information without ego. You can listen to criticism with curiosity. Is there a useful truth here I can learn from? If so, you accept it with gratitude and adjust. If not, you let it pass by, knowing it says more about the speaker than about you. Praise is treated the same way. You can receive a compliment with grace, but you don't let it inflate your sense of self. You know your work was good because you applied your principles to it. Not because someone said so. This internal reference point changes everything. Consider an artist sharing work online. The immediate response is a flood of data. Some comments are glowing, some are harsh, even cruel. If the artist's sense of worth is tied to that feedback, they're on an emotional roller coaster they can't control. The Stoic artist anchors themselves in the process. Did I create with integrity? Did I express what I intended to the best of my ability? Did I learn and grow through the making? If the answer is yes, then the work is a success, regardless of the public metric. The comments become information, some useful for the next project, some simply irrelevant. The artist remains engaged, sharing their work, but they are not consumed by the reaction. Or picture a leader who must make an unpopular but principled decision. They know it will draw blame, maybe public criticism. If their primary need is to be liked, they will waver. They might choose the easier, less right path. But a leader grounded in Stoic detachment can weigh the decision against their values. What is the just thing to do? What serves the long-term health of the community? Having answered those questions, they act. They explain their reasoning with clarity, and they receive the blame without letting it shake their conviction. They understand that doing the right thing often means earning the disapproval of those who prefer the comfortable thing. So take a moment. Think of a recent instance where you sought praise. Maybe you shared an accomplishment and waited for the right reaction. Or recall a time you went out of your way to avoid blame by staying silent or shifting responsibility. Now consider the Stoic alternative. What if, in that moment, your only concern had been whether your action was aligned with your own integrity? What if the opinion you valued most was the quiet one you hold about yourself when no one is watching? That shift doesn't make you indifferent to the world. It makes you free to engage with it on your own terms, guided not by the noise but by your own true north. The Stoics had this principle, voluntary discomfort. It's a form of training, like a vaccine for your mind. You expose yourself to a small, controlled challenge. To prove you can handle it, that your well-being isn't fragile, that it doesn't depend on everything being easy. This practice dismantles the fear of loss. It engages with simplicity to strengthen your capacity for joy right where you are. Seneca wrote about this. He would set aside days, live on plain bread and water. Wear his oldest clothes. He wasn't punishing himself. It was an experiment, a test of his self-sufficiency. He wanted to know, not just believe, that if fate took his wealth and status, he would still be okay. He would still be himself. That knowledge, earned through experience, creates a deep inner security. You stop clinging to comforts because you felt the truth. You can thrive without them. Your happiness is an internal condition. Think of it like training. If you only ever run in perfect weather on a smooth track, you'll never know if you can run in the rain. Voluntary discomfort is choosing to run in a light drizzle. You learn your shoes still grip, your legs still work, your breath still finds a rhythm. The next time a storm comes on race day, you're not afraid. You've been here before. Modern life offers endless opportunities for this. It's not about asceticism. It's about consciously choosing a slightly less convenient path. To remind your nervous system of its own strength, taking a cold shower for the final minute, not to shock the body, but to practice meeting a sensation you didn't choose with calm breath. Walking or biking for an errand you'd normally drive, feeling the air, noticing your neighborhood, doing a 24-hour digital detox, leaving your phone in another room for an evening. Discovering the quiet beneath the constant ping of notifications. Each of these is a small rebellion, a statement. I am not made fragile by minor inconvenience. My peace is sturdier than that. The reward is a double gift. First, resilience. When a real hardship comes, a financial pinch, a stressful week, you don't collapse. You have a reference point. You've practiced navigating discomfort. You know you have resources within you. Second, and perhaps more beautiful, is a renewed appreciation. That hot shower after a cold one feels like a luxury. The warmth of your home feels like a sanctuary. The connection with a friend, face to face after a screen-free day, feels richer. Voluntary discomfort doesn't make you love comfort less. It makes you need it less. And in that space between love and need, you find freedom. So here's an invitation for the coming week. Choose one small, voluntary discomfort to practice, just one. It could be skipping the second cup of coffee, taking the stairs, eating a meal without distraction, or spending an hour without checking any device. Don't make it a test of endurance. Make it an experiment in awareness. Notice the initial resistance, the little voice that says this is unnecessary. Then move through it gently and afterward reflect. What did you learn about your own capacity? Did the world fall apart? Or did you discover a sliver of quiet confidence you didn't know was there? That small discovery is the seed of an unshakable tranquility. Your possessions are like furniture in a hotel room. You use them while you're there, but you don't think the bed is you. You don't think the lamp is you. They're just there for the stay. The Stoics took that idea and applied it to everything. They saw material things as something fortune had loaned to you. That's the 12th principle, detaching yourself from what you own. It's not about giving everything away. It's not about living with nothing. It's about changing how you relate to the things you have. The point is to use them without letting them use you, to appreciate them without letting your identity get tangled up in them, without letting your peace depend on them. Epictetus had a very simple example. He said, when you drink from a ceramic cup, you remember it's just a cup, so if it breaks, you aren't upset. You can think, I was enjoying a cup that was already broken. That's not pessimism, it's a kind of mental practice. You enjoy the cup fully, you savor the water in it, but in the back of your mind, you know it's fragile. You know it's temporary, and that truth is what frees you. It stops the shock of grief when you lose something, and it also stops the swell of pride when you get something new. Both of those feelings, grief and pride, they come from attaching yourself to a thing. They mean you've confused a tool with a piece of who you are. The modern world pushes the opposite. It tells you your car shows your status, your phone defines how connected you are, your home displays your success. We're taught to be used by our possessions, to get our sense of worth from them. The Stoic approach is a quiet rebellion against that. It asks you to look at something you really value and run a simple thought experiment. Take your car, you rely on it, you might even like it. The Stoic attitude is to feel real gratitude for what it does, for the freedom it gives you, but at the same time to acknowledge what it really is. It's metal and glass and plastic put together in a factory. It can rust, it can break down, it can be in an accident. It's a temporary tool for your journey. Your value as a person isn't inside it. Your character isn't reflected in its paint. When you hold both thoughts together, gratitude for its use and clarity about its nature, that's how you engage with it correctly. You take care of it because that's the wise thing to do, but you don't panic over every scratch. You don't tie your mood to how clean it is. You can apply this to something more personal. Like a phone full of photos and memories, the device itself is a fragile piece of technology. It can be dropped, it can be stolen, it can just fail. The Stoic practice here involves two things. First, the practical step, back up your data. That's using the tool wisely. Second, the mental step, regularly remember its temporary nature. That's detaching from the tool. You can look at a cherished photo on the screen and feel the warmth of that memory. And in the same moment, you can acknowledge that the screen isn't the memory. The memory lives in you. The device is just one window to it. So here's something to try. Look around the room you're in right now. Let your eyes land on one object you value. It could be a piece of art, a comfortable chair, a useful gadget. For a moment, try to see it as a hotel furnishing, something provided for your use during this stay. Feel gratitude for it being here, for what it does. Then, in your mind, rehearse letting it go. Picture it gone tomorrow, not with dread but with calm acceptance. Notice what comes up in you. Is there resistance, a sense of loss? Then come back to the basic truth. You are still here. Your ability to appreciate, to remember, to create meaning, that's all still intact. The object was a temporary guest in your story. You are the story itself. This gentle rehearsal doesn't take away your enjoyment of things. It cleans it up. It lets you live with them lightly, freely, and with a deeper, more lasting peace. The Stoics talked about an inner fortress, something unassailable, and the art was learning how to retreat into it. They called it your inner citadel. It's not an escape, it's a stronghold, a space where your reason is sovereign, your choices are sovereign, no external event gets in. No harsh word, no sudden loss, not unless you personally open the gate and let it in. That's the ultimate freedom they meant. It's not freedom from circumstances. It's freedom within them, the freedom to choose your interpretation, your response, your stance from a place of calm. Marcus Aurelius described his own soul that way. He wrote that your ruling center becomes invincible when it withdraws into itself, when it's content with itself, doing nothing it does not will to do. That's the citadel. You go there to consult your deepest principles away from the noise. It's the command center for engaging the world, not a bunker for hiding from it. Think of a high-pressure conflict, a family argument heating up, voices rising. You feel the pull to react, to match the intensity, to win the point. Accessing the citadel, then, is a conscious shift, almost physical. You take a breath, and in that breath you step back internally. You observe the emotions, yours and theirs, as events outside the walls. From inside, you ask different questions, not who's right, but what's the principled thing here? What does kindness look like in this tension? What does fairness require? You act from those answers. Your tone might soften. You might say you need a moment to think and leave the room. That's not retreat. It's a strategic withdrawal to your center. So you can return with clarity, not reactivity or a professional crisis, a project failing publicly. Emails are frantic. Panic is in the air. From inside the citadel, the same facts look different. The failure is an external event. The blame and the fear are swirling outside. Your task isn't to join the swirl. It's to assess what's within your power right now. To communicate clearly, to take the next logical step, to lead by example with calm focus. The citadel is where you find that calm, where you remember your worth isn't on the line with this project. Your character is, and your character is shown by how you meet the challenge. So what threatens your citadel now? Is it the relentless pace of notifications? A constant siege on your attention? Is it a particular person's disapproval? An opinion that feels like a battering ram against your gates? Or is it an internal force? Like a fear of failure, whispering that you're not safe within your own mind. Strengthening the walls isn't about adding more armor against the world. It's built through daily practice, reinforced each time you pause before reacting, each time you choose a value over an impulse, each time you sit in quiet and remember that your judgment is the one thing no outside power can ever truly touch. This fortress isn't made of stone, it's made of conscious, repeated choice, and its gatekeeper is always you. The 14th principle is equanimity, a steady internal state. It's about meeting triumph and disaster just the same, not with numbness but with the same character. The goal is to stop the exhausting roller coaster, where a victory inflates the ego and a defeat crushes the spirit. Both reactions mean you're being controlled by an external event. Both pull you away from your center. The Stoic aim is to stand firmly in that center, to see both outcomes as just different kinds of material, opportunities to practice the same virtues. Just with a different backdrop, Rudyard Kipling captured this. He wrote, "If you can meet with triumph and disaster, and treat those two impostors just the same." The Stoics would have agreed. They saw both as impostors because they pretend to be the final verdict on your life when they're really just temporary events. Seneca wrote about the fickleness of fortune. He warned not to be elated by her favors nor crushed by her blows. She gives and she takes away, and your peace has to be built on something she can't touch. Your own reasoned choice, your own moral intent. Take a professional example. You work for months on a major proposal, you present it, and you win. The external validation is massive. Praise comes in, bonuses are discussed. The Stoic response isn't to pretend you're not happy. It's to receive the good news with gratitude, but without letting it redefine you. You consciously credit the team, the timing, the effort, things within your control. You don't internalize it as proof of your inherent superiority. That keeps your ego in check. It keeps you humble. Now flip it. You work for months, you present, and you lose. The competitor wins. The external judgment is negative. Disappointment is real. The Stoic response isn't to pretend you're not disappointed. It's to feel the sting, acknowledge it, and then apply your principles. What can I learn? Did I do my best with what was in my power? If yes, then my worth is intact. The loss becomes a masterclass in resilience, in gathering better intelligence. In refining your craft, your character is displayed not by the trophy but by your conduct after the game. Look at elite athletes. The ones with true longevity often have this. They celebrate a championship with joy, but there's a quiet focus underneath. They know this is one moment, the work continues, and when they suffer a heartbreaking loss, they show grace. They credit the opponent, they talk about what they'll improve. Their core identity isn't champion or loser, it's competitor. The arena is where they test their virtues. The scoreboard just tells them what to work on next, so bring to mind a past success, something you were proud of. Try to recall not just the good feelings but your internal state. Did the success make you feel temporarily invincible? Did it change how you interacted with others? Now bring to mind a past failure, a project that flopped. Recall that state. Did the failure make you feel like a fraud? Did it make you want to withdraw? Now overlay the Stoic ideal. What would a consistent response have looked like in both cases? In success, maybe grateful humility, a quiet acknowledgement of fortune and others, a quick return to the work itself. In failure, dignified acceptance. A calm analysis of the facts, a resolve to begin again, wiser. The person in both scenarios is the same, unbroken by loss, unspoiled by victory. That's the mark of a life built on something solid. Something no outcome can give you or take away. The past is a closed ledger. That's the 15th principle. You audit it for the lessons, and then you close the book. It's a specific kind of freedom, freedom from the weight of what's already happened. The Stoics saw time as a river flowing one way. You can't swim back upstream. Trying to just exhausts you, fighting a current you can't beat. The only point in looking back is to learn something that helps you navigate what's ahead. Anything more than that is a misuse of your attention, your present attention. Seneca wrote about this. He said we have this habit of anticipating trouble, of calling the future to account before it even arrives. But the greatest waste of life, he argued, is postponing life itself. We put off living now by clinging to what's already gone. We let yesterday consume today. That's the trap. Reflection is healthy. It's a brief, focused look to extract wisdom. Rumination is different. It's a loop. You replay the scene, the words, the mistake, not to understand but to relive the feeling. To punish yourself or to fantasize about a different outcome. That loop drains the energy you need for right now. Stoic detachment from the past is about breaking that loop. It's acknowledging the event is fixed. It's outside your control. Your judgment about it, though, and what you do now, those are entirely within your power. Take a past mistake, a professional one. Maybe you missed a critical detail that cost your team a client. Reflection looks at it squarely. What led to the oversight? Was I rushed? Did I lack a skill? Did I fail to ask for help? You note the answers. You resolve to build a checklist, to take a course, to communicate more openly. Then you close the file. You carry the lesson forward, not the shame. Rumination keeps the file open. It plays the angry client's face. It rehearses the apology over and over. It ties your current self-worth to that old moment. That's where you need the Stoic move. You consciously say, that chapter is written. I can't edit a single word of it. I can only write the next chapter with more care. The same applies to a grudge. Holding onto resentment for a past hurt is like drinking poison and hoping the other person feels it. The event is over. The other person may have moved on or may not even remember, but you keep the wound fresh by revisiting it. Detachment here means you accept that what happened, happened. You learn what it taught you about boundaries or trust. You decide how you'll interact with that person now, or if you will at all, and then you stop feeding the story with your mental energy. You free that energy for your current relationships, for your own growth. Nostalgia can be a subtler trap, a longing for a simpler time, a past version of yourself you think was happier. The Stoic reminder is gentle. That time is gone. The person you were is gone. To pine for it is to reject the person you are now and the possibilities of this day. You can cherish a memory without wanting to live inside it. You honor the past best by living fully in the present it helped create. So here's a prompt. What's one chapter from your past that you need to close the book on today? Is it a regret on repeat? A resentment you've nursed, a nostalgic fantasy that makes today seem dull? Identify it, audit it for its single clearest lesson. Write that lesson down, then, in your mind, visualize placing that old book back on the shelf. It's part of your library, but you don't have to read it every day. The story you're writing now is waiting. Words can make things hotter or cooler. The Stoics would describe things very precisely to calm a situation down. That's the 16th principle, objective description. It's a language tool for stepping back. You take something that feels charged or an emotional storm, and you put it into plain, factual words. You take out the judgments, the dramatic labels, the story you're telling yourself about it. What's left is just the neutral event. And that neutral event is almost always easier to look at, to think about, to deal with. It's seeing the thing as it is, not as it feels. Marcus Aurelius was good at this. He'd remind himself to strip the story away from his first impression. See the thing for what it is in its own nature, he wrote. He'd break a complicated, scary situation into its basic parts. A fancy meal is just dead fish, dead birds, dead pigs. A famous person's praise is just a movement of air from their lips. By describing the reality in simple terms, he took away the emotional glamour, the anxiety, the pride. He got down to the raw material. Then he could decide clearly what to do with it. The power is in moving from a loaded story to a simple report. The story says, "This is a disaster." The report says the project deadline moved up 2 weeks and 2 people on the team are sick. The first one triggers panic. It's a total, overwhelming verdict. The second one states facts. It invites problem solving. Which part can we adjust? How do we move things around? The facts are hard, but they're manageable. The label disaster isn't. Take a common social worry. The story whispers, "I made a complete fool of myself." The objective description would be, in a group conversation, "I told a story and there was silence, and then the topic changed." One version defines you, a fool. The other describes a specific event in a social setting. From that neutral place you can look at it. Was the story too long for that moment? Did the group maybe not hear it? The event becomes information, not a definition of your worth. Apply it to a personal frustration. The heated thought is, "My commute is a nightmare." The objective description is, "My drive to work is 23 miles, and between 7 and 8, traffic slows to 15 miles per hour for about 30 minutes." The first one fills you with dread before you even get in the car. The second states a logistical reality. It opens up solutions. Could I leave 15 minutes earlier? Is there a podcast that could make that time useful? The nightmare is a judgment that paralyzes. The description is a fact that lets you act. This practice is a direct intervention in your own thinking. When you feel a surge of anger, instead of saying "this is outrageous," you pause and describe, "My colleague presented my idea as their own in the meeting." That's the observable fact. The judgment outrageous is the added layer that feeds the emotional fire. Then you can choose from a comma place how to address the fact. Maybe with a private conversation, the action is more effective because it's not clouded by the inflammatory language. So here's a reflective prompt, an exercise in Stoic detachment. Bring to mind one current worry, a small, persistent anxiety. Your task is to write a purely objective, one-sentence description of it. Don't use words like terrible, unfair, exhausting, or hopeless. Don't use labels like disaster or failure. Use only observable facts: who, what, when, where, and measurable how. For example, instead of "I'm failing at my budget," you might write, "Last month, my spending was $200 more than my income." See how the problem changes from a vague, identity-level crisis into a concrete, solvable equation. That sentence is your anchor. It brings you back from the storm of judgment to the solid ground of reality. And from that ground, you can start to build. The Stoics discovered something about detachment, true detachment. It doesn't lead you into isolation. It actually leads to a deep sense of connection. They called this Sympatheia. Their view was that the universe is one living being, a single, interconnected system, and you're a part of it, the way a leaf is part of a tree. Your life, your breath, your thoughts, they're woven into the fabric of the whole. This perspective, it doesn't make your problems seem smaller. It makes your sense of belonging feel larger. It turns detachment from a personal strategy into a kind of civic virtue. You care for others not from obligation, but because you see their well-being is tied to yours. That harming someone else is like a hand deciding to wound the foot. The whole body feels that pain. Marcus Aurelius kept returning to this image. He wrote that what brings benefit to the hive brings benefit to the bee. And that rational beings are made for cooperation, like feet, hands, eyelids, like the rows of upper and lower teeth. To act against one another, he said, is contrary to nature. That's the ultimate reframe. Your personal troubles aren't separate from the world. They're one small expression of a universal experience, and this shared experience, that's the ground for genuine compassion. You can feel for another's hardship without being drowned by it, because you see it as part of the same human condition you're navigating. Think of a moment feeling utterly alone in a crowded room. Surrounded by people but disconnected, Sympatheia asks you to shift your gaze, look past the surface, past the separate conversations, the isolated bodies. See the shared humanness. Every person in that room knows loss. Every person has felt hope. Every person is navigating their own private story inside this same shared reality. You're not an island in that sea, you're a wave in the same ocean. The feeling of isolation starts to soften, replaced by a quiet, observant kinship. Or during a conflict, when someone seems like an opponent, an obstacle, Sympatheia invites you to look deeper. This person, too, is acting from their own reasoning. However flawed, they, too, are seeking what they believe is good, or avoiding what they perceive as harm. You share the same fundamental nature. You're both branches of the same tree, swaying in the same wind. This doesn't mean you accept poor behavior. It means you address it from a place of understanding, not hatred. Your response can be firm yet kind, because you're correcting a part of your own whole. So here's a space for reflection. Consider a current challenge, a personal worry that feels heavy and uniquely yours. Now, gently expand the frame. Can you see this challenge as part of a larger, shared human experience? How many millions throughout time have faced a version of this, not to minimize your struggle, but to place it within the grand, enduring story of being human? In that vast context, your next step isn't just for you, it's your contribution to the whole. The Stoics saw something about our distress. It's often not the event itself. It's the expectation we have for it, that fixed picture in your head, how a conversation is supposed to go, how a holiday should feel, how a project at work should unfold. And then reality comes along and it's different. That friction, that's where the pain is. This isn't about having no goals. It's about the difference between a flexible intention and a brittle script. Unattached engagement. You go into a situation with a clear aim, but your hands are open. Your focus is on your own response, not on controlling every line of the play. Epictetus put it clearly, we are disturbed not by things but by the views we take of them, and an expectation is just that, a very specific, very demanding view of how a future thing should be. We suffer when the world doesn't conform to that private script, so the practice is to hold expectations lightly, to see them as preferences, not demands. As hopes, not contracts. That shift is a profound detachment. It doesn't lower your standards, it raises your resilience. Think about travel plans. You envision a smooth getaway. The flight on time, perfect weather, the photos matching the brochure. Then there's a long delay at the airport, rain for 3 days straight. The hotel room overlooks a parking lot. If your expectation was a rigid script, this feels like a personal failure of the universe. Disappointment takes over. The whole trip is colored by what it wasn't. Now the Stoic lens, your intention was rest and new experience. The delay is a chance to practice patience, to read that book. The rain invites cozy cafes, museum visits you hadn't considered. The room is just a place to sleep while you explore a city in its authentic state. By releasing the specific script, you engage with the actual trip. You might find joys the brochure never promised, or a collaborative project at work. You expect your teammates to be as prepared as you are. You expect the process to be efficient, harmonious. Then someone misses a deadline or critiques your idea. It feels like a breach of an unwritten contract. The Stoic approach is to enter with the intention of doing your best work. Contributing to a shared goal, you prepare thoroughly, you communicate clearly. Those are your virtues, your teammates' actions, their level of preparation, their reactions. Those aren't within your power. Expecting them to act a certain way is a setup for frustration. By focusing on your own virtuous response, offering help, considering feedback without ego, you stay engaged. Effective without being derailed by every deviation from your mental plan. This applies in personal relationships too. You expect a loved one to remember an important date, to react with excitement to your news, to support you in a precise way. When they don't, it can feel like a betrayal. But people are complex. They have their own burdens, their own perspectives. Holding a light expectation means you communicate your hope. You appreciate when it's met, but you don't hinge your entire emotional state on their performance. Your peace stays rooted in your own understanding, your own capacity for kindness regardless of their actions. So here's a space for reflection. Look at your day ahead. Identify one expectation you're holding, maybe unconsciously. It could be about how a meeting will conclude, how a family member will behave, how much you'll accomplish on your list. Now consciously try to soften it. Change it from a demand to a preference, from a script to a general intention. Notice the subtle sense of space that creates. You haven't given up on a good outcome. You've just made room for reality to unfold and for your best self to meet it, whatever form it takes. The Stoics had this reminder they kept close. Memento Mori, remember you will die, and it's probably the most misunderstood thing they did. It wasn't about being morbid, it was a lens, a grounding one. For detachment, when you really hold the fact that your life is finite, a sorting happens. Almost automatically, the petty stuff, the vain pursuits, the hours lost to distraction, they start to lose their grip. You see them for what they are, distractions from the central project, which is living well while you can. Marcus Aurelius came back to this thought a lot. In his private writings, he didn't shy away from it. He wrote that you could leave life right now, and that should determine what you do, what you say and think. He reflected on the brevity, how we're all here for a brief sojourn, and he saw death not as some terrifying end, but as natural, part of the same cycle that has birth and growth in it. A return to nature, that perspective was meant to strip away pretense, to remind him that the time for acting with virtue, for contributing, is now, not in some distant future when things are perfect. Seneca wrote whole letters on using time wisely. He argued we aren't given a short life. We make it short, we waste it, we act like we'll live forever, postponing what matters. He told his friend to live immediately, to measure life by action, not duration, and the function of Memento Mori is to collapse that delay. It creates a gentle urgency. It asks if not now, when, in practice, this changes daily things. Take procrastination. You have a meaningful project, a creative idea, a difficult conversation. The mind invents reasons to delay. I'll start tomorrow when I feel inspired, when I have time. Memento Mori cuts through that. It whispers you don't have an infinite supply of tomorrows. This day is a non-renewable resource, and so the choice to begin, even imperfectly, becomes an act of respect for your own limited time or a petty argument. A disagreement over a chore, a perceived slight in a text, a political comment at a family gathering. In the heat of it, it feels monumental. Your whole sense of justice feels tied to winning that point. Now apply the lens. In the context of a life that will end, how much does this truly matter? Does it merit the anger, the stress, the fractured connection? The practice doesn't mean you avoid all conflict. It means you engage only in what's worthy of your finite energy. You detach from the ego's need to be right. And you attach to the deeper value of harmony, or, if it's necessary, a principled but calm dissent. It reshapes leisure too, an hour scrolling a social feed, lost in comparison and trivial updates. It feels different when it's one of a finite number of hours. The question shifts from what can I do to pass the time to what would be a worthy way to spend this hour of my life. It might still be rest, but it becomes conscious rest. Chosen, not passive distraction, so here's a space for a brief reflection. It doesn't require a grand action, just honest thought. If you carried the awareness that your time was truly limited, not in a fearful way, but in a clear-eyed, factual way, what would you stop doing today? And what would you start? The stopping might be small, ceasing to replay an old grievance, quitting a habit of complaint. The starting might be small, too. Sending a message of appreciation, taking the first 5-minute step toward a forgotten goal, or just sitting quietly with a loved one without a screen in hand. That's the gift of the remembrance. It doesn't paralyze with fear, it liberates with clarity. It detaches you from the trivial, so you can attach wholeheartedly to what gives your brief sojourn its meaning. Detachment clears away the emotional fog, lets the light of reason guide your choices. That's the core of Stoic decision-making. It's not about removing all feeling. It's about making sure your feelings aren't the one driving. The Stoics had this ideal, the sage, a person whose actions came from reason, perfectly aligned with nature. So their decisions were consistent, virtuous, free from the distortions of passion or fear, or that frantic need for a quick reward. They saw impulsive emotion as a kind of temporary madness. Like a storm that obscures the shoreline, your job as the navigator is to wait for that weather to clear before you set your course. Seneca wrote a lot about anger. Called it a brief insanity. His advice was that the best cure for anger is delay, to pause, let that first flush of feeling subside so reason can regain its place. That pause is the practical space where detachment lives. It's the moment you reclaim your sovereignty over a choice, take a significant financial decision. An opportunity comes up, maybe an investment promising quick, substantial returns. The emotional attachments are powerful. There's the lure of immediate gratification, the fear of missing out if you hesitate, the excitement of imagining a transformed future. All that creates a fog. A Stoic approach introduces that crucial pause. You step back, you assess the facts with detachment, like you're advising a close friend. What's the actual evidence for this opportunity? What are the measurable risks? Is this aligned with my long-term goals and values, or is it a gamble driven by short-term desire? By separating the emotional thrill from the rational analysis, you make a decision rooted in prudence, not in hope or anxiety. The same framework applies to a career crossroads. The temptation might be to flee a difficult situation for any available escape, or to cling to a familiar role out of fear of the unknown. Both are emotionally driven. Detachment lets you view the landscape from a higher vantage. What skills do I want to cultivate? What impact do I want to have? Which path offers the best chance to practice my virtues: courage, justice, wisdom, regardless of the immediate comfort or discomfort? You weigh the options not as a victim of circumstance, but as an architect of your own character. This holds even in a heated moment of provocation. Someone says something deliberately hurtful. The impulsive, emotional decision is to retaliate, to win the exchange, to make them feel what you feel. The Stoic pause creates a gap. In that gap, you ask a different set of questions. What would a wise response look like? Does a sharp retort actually serve my principles, or does it just feed a momentary anger? Often, the most powerful and virtuous decision is to not engage on the other person's emotional level. To respond with calm or to choose silence, that's a decision made from detached reason, and it often diffuses the conflict entirely. So here's a reflective prompt. Bring to mind a decision you're currently weighing, large or small. Could be about a relationship, a purchase, a commitment of your time. Now, identify one emotional attachment that might be clouding your judgment. Is it a fear of disappointment, a desire for social approval, a lingering resentment from a past event that colors this new choice? Simply naming that attachment begins the process of detachment. It lets you see the decision a little more clearly for what it is, and to choose the path that reason, not just reaction, would advise. Stoic apathy. It's not about feeling nothing. It's about not being overthrown by chaotic feelings. That's the 21st principle, Apatheia, a freedom from the passions that enslave. The Stoics weren't aiming for a flat, gray existence. They were seeking a clear sky after a storm. The goal was to experience feelings without being hijacked by them, to feel joy, but not a manic euphoria that ignores reality. To feel caution, but not a paralyzing fear. To feel a sense of loss, but not a consuming grief that obliterates all other meaning. The destructive passions, what they called paid, were seen as sicknesses of the soul. Judgments that had run wild, convincing you a temporary event was a permanent catastrophe, or that a mere object was essential to your survival. Seneca described the ideal state as tranquility. A mind at peace with itself, raised above every circumstance. That's the harmony of Apatheia. A mind in order where reason gently guides your emotional responses instead of being dragged behind them. They even had a term for the good, healthy feelings, Sympatheia. These were rational, measured responses, a steady, deep-seated joy instead of frantic elation. A wise caution instead of blind terror, a well-wishing affection instead of possessive, jealous love. The distinction is everything. It's the difference between a flame and a wildfire. Both are fire, but one warms the home and the other destroys the forest. Consider receiving difficult news. A project you care about is cancelled. The passion-fueled response is a storm of internal noise. This is a disaster. This proves I'm a failure. Everything is ruined. The emotion is total, and it demands your full attention. It clouds your vision, making the next right step impossible to see. The Apatheia response allows the initial disappointment to land. You feel the sting, but you don't let that sting write the whole story. You observe the feeling. You apply your principles. This is one project. My worth isn't tied to it. What can I learn? What opportunity does this cleared space create? From that calm center, you can engage. You can have a constructive conversation about next steps. You can pivot your energy thoughtfully. You haven't numbed out. You've simply refused to let a single event define your entire emotional world. Or picture a moment of road rage. Another driver cuts you off. The passionate response is instantaneous fury, a surge of adrenaline, a narrative of personal disrespect, a compulsion to retaliate. Apatheia intercepts that. It allows you to feel the spike of alarm. That's the healthy caution, but it doesn't let that spike blossom into a full narrative of rage. You feel the rush, you note it, and you let it pass. Your hands stay steady on the wheel. Your focus remains on safe driving. You've protected your peace, and you've prevented a dangerous escalation. So here is a space for reflection. Look at your own emotional landscape. Identify one passion that frequently disrupts your peace. Is it a flash of anger that leaves you simmering for hours? A wave of anxiety about tomorrow that steals the focus from today? A gnawing envy that makes your own accomplishments feel small? Name it. Then, gently ask yourself this: what would a more measured, harmonious response to that trigger look like? Not a robotic absence of feeling, but a feeling acknowledged, understood, and integrated into a reasoned, purposeful action. That is the practice of Apatheia. The cultivation of an inner climate where you can feel the weather, but you are no longer at the mercy of every storm. Detachment isn't solemn. The Stoics knew you could look at things with a kind of ironic humor. You practice stepping back, watching your impressions, holding outcomes lightly, and something happens. You start to see the comedy in being human, the big plans that fall apart. The little things we turn into disasters, wanting total control in a world that runs by its own rules. It's not mockery, it's not cynicism, it's a healthy distance. It lowers stress, it builds resilience. When you don't take yourself or every situation with ultimate seriousness, you get a buffer. You can face life's absurdities without being crushed by them. The Stoics didn't tell many jokes in their texts, but their view that human affairs are often fleeting, often trivial, that view leads to a lighter perspective. Marcus Aurelius carried the weight of an empire, and he'd remind himself about the theater. He wrote about the stage. When the play ends, the actor takes off the mask. He saw the court, the striving for status, as a kind of performance. From that detached place, you can smile at the posturing, even your own. Epictetus had a wry, practical side. He said, when you go to the baths, remember, you'll meet people who splash, who crowd, who take your spot. His point wasn't to get angry, it was to go in expecting it. And when it happens, you can almost laugh because it's so predictable. That's the humor of recognition, seeing the same old patterns play out and choosing not to take them personally. You can use this now with everyday frustrations. Take a classic hassle. You're on hold with an automated system. You go through endless menus, then you get disconnected. The passionate response is fury, a feeling the universe is targeting you. The detached view watches it like an anthropologist. Here you are, a conscious being, capable of wonder and love, listening to tinny hold music, pressing zero again and again. It's a ritual of modern life, and when you step back, it's ridiculous. You feel the frustration, but you also see the irony. It works with your own mistakes too, spilling coffee right before a meeting, forgetting a name as soon as you hear it. Instead of spiraling into self-criticism, you can offer a gentle, humorous note. The classic move, the human brain. It can do calculus and poetry. And it can forget where it left the keys. This light touch doesn't erase real suffering. It doesn't make important work trivial. It puts the small stuff in its place. So you have more energy for what matters. So here's a simple thing. Think of a recent annoyance from your week, a traffic jam, a tech glitch, a miscommunication. Try to find one genuinely humorous or ironic part of it, not sarcasm. An observation that makes you exhale with a smile. Maybe it's the irony of rushing to save time, only to wait longer. Maybe it's the universal comedy of autocorrect creating nonsense. In that moment of finding the humor, you're practicing Stoic detachment. You're choosing to see the event from a wider angle, where it becomes a story to tell, not a wound to nurse. That shift is a kind of superpower for a peaceful mind. Life is uncertain. That's just how it is. Stoicism doesn't give you a map for that. It says you have to sail without one. Our minds want a fixed plan. They want a predictable outcome, a clear forecast. And when reality doesn't give us that, we panic. A low-grade panic, a tightening in the chest. The mind starts racing through every possible disaster. That anxiety, it's not really about the uncertainty. It's about our attachment, our rigid need for certainty. We think we need that map to feel safe. Stoic detachment is about loosening that grip. Accepting that the weather, the winds, the sea itself, none of that is in our power. What is in our power is our skill as a sailor, our ability to read the waves, to adjust the sails, to stay calm in a squall. That skill is our virtue, and that's where we put our focus, our effort, our trust. Seneca wrote about this. About dealing with an unknown future, he said, fortune gives us nothing we can truly own. Our bodies, our possessions, our status, they're on loan. The only thing that's ours, he said, is our character. Our reasoned choice. He told his friend to prepare the mind, to meet whatever comes. Don't waste energy trying to force the future into a shape you recognize. Instead, shape yourself into someone who can meet any future with resilience. The goal isn't to know what will happen. The goal is to be ready for whatever does. Take career uncertainty. The industry shifts. Your role feels less secure. The passionate response is to seek guarantees, to obsess over market trends, to network with a desperate energy, to cling to the old job description even as it changes. That anxiety is exhausting because you're trying to control an ocean. The Stoic approach is to shift your gaze from the turbulent sea to your own two hands on the wheel. You accept the market is uncertain. That's a fact, not a personal failure. Your power is in your adaptability, your courage to learn a new skill, your justice in how you treat colleagues, your wisdom in managing resources. You focus on becoming a more versatile professional, a more principled one. You engage fully with your current work, with excellence, because that's the virtue of this moment. The outcome, whether you stay or pivot or move on, that becomes secondary. You've built a seaworthy character, and that's your true vessel. The same with health. A worrying symptom appears, tests are pending, the days of waiting can be agony. If you're attached to a specific result, you spin stories, worst-case scenarios, each one feeds the fear. Stoic detachment is acknowledging the truth. Right now, the diagnosis is unknown. That's the reality of this moment. Your task isn't to know the future. Your task is to practice the virtues this uncertainty requires. That might be courage, the courage to face the doctor's office with dignity. It might be discipline, the discipline to care for your body with rest and good food while you wait. It might be acceptance, to receive whatever news comes with a clear mind, ready to adapt, to take the next right action. You prepare yourself because that's the only thing you can truly prepare. So identify one area of deep uncertainty in your life right now. A relationship's future, a financial path, a creative project, a family situation, name it quietly. Now set aside the uncontrollable outcome just for a moment. Instead, ask this: within this field of uncertainty, what virtues can I practice today? Is it the courage to have an honest conversation, the patience to wait without spiraling, the wisdom to gather more information, the justice to act fairly toward others involved? Your power isn't in resolving the uncertainty, it's in how you choose to stand within it. That choice is your anchor, and no storm can take it. The Stoics would end their day with a quiet conversation with themselves. An evening review, a pause before sleep to look back over the day with a detached, gentle eye. It wasn't about counting failures, it wasn't about praise. It was an exercise in objective observation, seeing your life as a project you're always refining. Seneca wrote about this. He said sleep should follow this self-examination. He would ask his soul, what bad habit did you cure today? What fault did you resist? In what way are you better? His tone wasn't a harsh judge. It was a wise teacher checking a student's progress. The goal was learning, not condemnation. It was detachment from the ego's need to be perfect or to be pitiful. You look at your actions as if they were someone else's. With a calm curiosity about what worked and what didn't, the practice can be simple. A modern version might be 3 questions, asked with honest reflection. First, where did my actions align with my values today? Maybe you showed patience in a long line, or offered real encouragement to a colleague. You acknowledge that. Second, where did I act against my better judgment? Maybe you snapped at a family member over something small, or wasted an hour avoiding a task you noted. Without drama. Third, what's one thing I can do differently tomorrow that turns observation into intention, not a grand resolution, a small, specific adjustment? Like taking a deep breath before responding, or starting the most important work before checking email. Think about a typical day, a work presentation that felt rushed. In the review, you don't just say you're a bad presenter, you detach, you observe the facts. I felt underprepared on the second section. My voice got hurried when questions started. The learning is clear. Tomorrow, I'll practice that section once more. I'll plan to pause for 3 seconds after any question before I answer, or a moment of personal discipline. You meant to go for a walk but chose the couch. The review isn't for guilt, it's for understanding. I felt mentally drained from a difficult call. I defaulted to the easiest comfort. Tomorrow, I'll put my walking shoes by the door before that call happens. This nightly audit, done with compassionate detachment, does something profound. It stops small missteps from hardening into habits. It turns the chaos of the day into a curriculum for your own growth. The review is a private debrief, where you're both the participant and the wise observer. So tonight, before sleep, you could try a 2-minute version. Find a quiet moment, ask those questions gently. What went well? What could have been better? What's one tiny step for tomorrow? Do it without self-flagellation. Just observe, learn, and then let the day go. This practice builds night by night the most important form of detachment, the ability to see yourself clearly, and so to steer your life with a little more wisdom. The ancient Stoics weren't against pleasure. They saw the danger in being mastered by it. The line was between using a thing and being used by it. A good meal, a fine wine, these were fine. The problem started when the pursuit began to steer your life, when you needed it to feel okay. That shift from choice to compulsion is where freedom gets lost. Epictetus gave a practical warning: be careful about things that can hook you. He said, if you drink water, you can tell yourself you drink water, but with wine, you must proceed with greater caution. He wasn't condemning wine, he was pointing to its power, its potential to lower your guard, to make your reasoned choice less sovereign. The goal was to approach any pleasure with your eyes open, to enjoy it while remaining the one in charge. Seneca wrote about moderating indulgence. He practiced periodic abstinence, not because he hated pleasure, but to prove he wasn't its slave. He said we must indulge the body just enough to satisfy its needs. The mind, however, must be kept separate. It must stand apart so that it may be the body's master, not its guest. That's the core distinction. Are you the master in your own house or a guest following the body's cravings? Modern life is a designed landscape of hooks. The infinite scroll of a social feed, engineered to deliver just enough novelty to keep your thumb moving. The autoplay function that removes the conscious choice to start the next episode. The sugary snack formulated for that perfect bliss point, making it hard to stop at one. These aren't moral failings. They are sophisticated systems built to bypass your higher reasoning. Stoic detachment here is a reclaiming of that higher ground. It's inserting a moment of sovereignty between the impulse and the action. Take screen time. The compulsion is to reach for the phone during any idle moment, in line, on the couch, first thing in the morning. The detached approach is to notice that urge, to feel the pull, and then to ask, is this a choice or a reflex? You might still pick it up, but you do so knowing why. I am choosing to check messages. I am choosing to watch this one video. That tiny pause is the difference between being used by the device and using it as a tool. Apply it to a habit like online shopping. The pleasure is in the hunt, the click, the anticipation of a package arriving. The compulsive cycle is triggered by boredom, stress, or a targeted ad. The Stoic move is to create a rule, a 24-hour waiting period for any non-essential purchase. That space allows the initial dopamine spike to fade. It lets you ask the reasoned question, do I truly need this, or did I just want the feeling of acquiring it? The rule isn't a punishment. It's a fence that protects your freedom of choice. So here's a space for a quiet audit. Identify one pleasure you consume habitually, almost automatically. It could be that afternoon sugary snack, the evening streaming binge, the first scroll through social media upon waking. Your task is not to eliminate it. Your task is to practice a deliberate pause before engaging with it next time. When the urge arises, stop for just 30 seconds. Breathe, observe the sensation of wanting, then make a conscious decision. I am now choosing this, or I am choosing something else. That moment of choice is where your mastery lies. It's the small, daily practice of ensuring your pleasures remain your servants, never your masters. A lot of the suffering we feel around other people, it comes from the story we tell ourselves about them. Not from who they actually are. We put our own hopes on them, our fears, old wounds from before, and then we react to that projection like it's the real thing. We end up getting hurt by a version of them that mostly lives in our own head. Stoic detachment, it gives you a clearer lens. It asks you to see people as they are, in their own nature, not as you wish they were or as you're afraid they might be. This might be the hardest way to use the dichotomy of control. Other people's actions, their opinions, their personalities, those aren't in your power. What is in your power is your judgment of them, your decision to read their behavior through a story of malice or a story of ignorance, your choice to expect them to play a role you've assigned. When you let go of those stories, those expectations, a space opens, a space for seeing things more clearly and for a kind of engagement that's more peaceful. Marcus Aurelius kept coming back to this. He wrote, "When someone seems to have wronged you, consider this. What's their idea of good and bad? Once you see that, you'll feel pity." Not anger, not surprise. He reminded himself that people do what seems right to them, according to their own understanding. They act from their own nature. To be angry that a fig tree produces figs, he said, that's absurd. To be angry that a person acts from their character, it's the same kind of folly. That insight is deep. It's not asking you to approve of harmful behavior. It's asking you to see it for what it is, a product of that person's current understanding, their experiences, their values, and that understanding. It's not in your control. Your response, though, that's entirely your own. Take a common friction at work. A colleague has a habit of interrupting in meetings. The story you might write is they're arrogant, disrespectful, trying to undermine you. That story fuels resentment. Every meeting turns into a battle. Your emotional energy is drained before it even starts. Now put on the Stoic lens, detach from the story, look at the objective behavior. In meetings, this person often starts speaking before others have finished. That's the fact. Their reasons are outside your knowledge, outside your control. Maybe they're anxious and overeager. Maybe they were never taught a different way. Maybe they don't even realize the impact. Your power is in your response. You can choose not to take it as a personal affront. You can calmly finish your point when there's a pause. You might even choose to have a quiet conversation later, framed around how the team works, not personal blame. By seeing the behavior more objectively, you free yourself from the turmoil. You engage with the actual situation, not the dramatic narrative. This applies powerfully where values clash. A family member holds political views you find troubling. The story says they're ignorant, or worse. Every conversation is charged. Every holiday feels like a minefield. Detachment invites you to see them as a whole person. Someone who's lived a different life, consumed different information, reached different conclusions. You can acknowledge their views are a product of their journey. A journey you didn't take. That doesn't mean you agree. It doesn't mean you stop advocating for what you believe. It means you stop expecting them to suddenly see the light. To become someone else, you relate to the person who's actually in front of you. You might set a boundary not to discuss certain topics. You might listen just to understand their perspective. Without the goal of changing it, you protect your peace by managing your own expectations, your own reactions, not by trying to control theirs. So here's a practice. A way to try clear seeing. Think of one person you have a strong judgment about, someone difficult, or even someone you idealize. Now try to describe their behavior. The specific things they do and say in purely objective terms. Strip away the labels: rude, selfish, brilliant, hero. Instead, note actions. They arrive 5 minutes late to most appointments. They often talk about their own achievements. They return calls within a day. They use a certain tone when they're stressed. That list of observable facts, that's who they are right now. The story you've been telling yourself about why, that's your creation. In the space between the fact and the story, you find your freedom, the freedom to choose how you'll meet that reality. With wisdom, not with a script written by your own unmet needs. The Stoics looked at history and saw a pattern. Even the most enduring reputations are eventually forgotten. The celebrated heroes, the reviled villains, the brilliant artists, their names echo for a while, then fade into myth and then into silence. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He asked himself to think of those who lived long ago, the great and the forgotten. Where are they now? He wrote that all of that is smoke or dust or a tale. Or not even a tale. The point wasn't to be cynical. It was to see reputation for what it is, an external event, a story told by others long after you're gone. And like all externals, it's not within your power. You can't control what people say about you tomorrow, let alone a century from now. To tie your peace to that is to build on shifting sand. It's a profound detachment. It asks you to release the need for a certain kind of immortality. The drive for a legacy, for a name that lives on, is often just another form of clinging. We want to prove we were here, that we mattered, that our life counted for something. The Stoic redirects that energy. They say the only ledger that matters is the one you keep with your own character. The only proof you were here is the good you did while you were present. Your true legacy isn't a name in a book. It's the justice in your actions, the courage in your choices, the kindness you showed to the person right in front of you. Those things have worth, whether anyone remembers your part in them or not. We feel this tension today. The curated LinkedIn profile, crafted for a permanent professional narrative, the anxiety over a career legacy, the quiet hope that a creative project might make you notable. There's nothing wrong with professional pride. The attachment creeps in when your sense of worth becomes dependent on the recognition, the likes, the citations, the lasting impact. When you start making choices not from integrity, but from how they might look in a biography no one may ever write, the Stoic practice is to perform the work for its own sake. To act with virtue because it is right, not because it builds your brand. You write the report with clarity because the truth deserves clarity. You mentor a junior colleague because it is a generous act. You build something useful because the world needs useful things. You do these things with excellence and then you release them, like a stone dropped into a pond. You attend to the dropping, not to the ripples that travel out beyond your sight. The ripples are not your business. The quality of the stone and the intention with which you let it go, that is your domain. So here's a question. If you knew with certainty that your name, your face, every record of your achievements would be completely forgotten in 100 years, how would that change what you focus on today? Would you still pursue the same goals? Would you still harbor that resentment or chase that accolade? Or would your attention shift to the quality of the moments themselves? To the integrity of an honest conversation, the warmth of a shared laugh, the simple satisfaction of a task done well for its own sake. That shift in focus is a freedom from the weight of posterity. It allows you to live fully, not for the archive, but for the present. The Stoic sage is like the eye of a storm, calm at the center while everything else is in motion. But it's not a calm of being alone. It's a calm you carry with you into the middle of everything. The idea is stillness, but inside of activity. It's bringing your whole attention to the one thing right in front of you. Even when 10 other things are calling for it, your focus becomes an anchor. It holds you in the present, so you're not pulled into the future or back into the past. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He said to do every act as if it were your last act, to do it with concentration, with dignity. He didn't mean a rushed final effort. He meant a deep focus, an unhurried attention where you give the task your full presence, as if nothing else existed. And when you do that, the mental noise starts to fade. The feeling of being pulled in 10 directions dissolves because you've chosen one direction. You've chosen this. Think about a normal workday, emails coming in, a meeting running late, a report that's due. Your mind tries to hold it all at once. You're writing the email, but you're also half in the meeting and you're worrying about the report. The result is you feel scattered, you feel exhausted. You were busy all day, but you didn't accomplish anything deeply. The practice is to land on one point. You close every other tab. You set a timer. For those minutes, the report is your entire world. You feel the keyboard under your fingers. You notice your own rhythm of thinking. If a thought about email comes in, you note it and you go back to the sentence. You're not running from your duties, you're engaging with one of them completely. Then when the timer goes, you move to the next single thing. The busyness is still there around you, but you've made a pocket of order inside it. You've become the I. This works in parenting too, the beautiful chaos of it, a question about homework, a spilled drink, an argument, the oven timer. The reactive way is to snap at the noise, to rush from one mess to the next with your patience fraying. The Stoic way is to land, to kneel down to the child with the spilled drink. For those 30 seconds, that is your universe. You help them wipe it up, you hear their little apology, you offer a calm word, then you stand, you move to the next single point. The argument, you listen to one side, then the other. You don't try to solve the homework while you're refereeing. You finish one circle of attention before you start the next. The chaos doesn't go away, but your center within it holds. Even a crowded commute can be a place for this. Instead of resenting the traffic, the closeness, the delay, you focus on one neutral sensation. The feeling of your breath or the light on the buildings you're passing. You're not trying to escape the situation. You're finding a point of stillness inside it. Your attention, which was scattered across frustration, gathers into a single beam, and in that beam there's a kind of peace. So here's something to try tomorrow. Pick one routine thing: making your coffee, answering your first emails, washing the dishes. Your goal isn't to finish it fast. Your goal is to do it with the intention of stillness. Give it your complete attention. When your mind wanders to the next task or to a worry, guide it back to the sensory details, the smell of the coffee grounds, the weight of the mug, the sound of the water. For those few minutes, let that activity be your whole world, and in that focus you'll find it, the eye of the storm. A calm that doesn't need quiet around you. It comes from the quality of your own attention. The final frontier in Stoicism might be detachment from the idea of a separate self. A fragile self that feels like it needs defending. So much of our conflict, our anxiety, the hurt feelings, they aren't really about the events. They're about a story we tell. A story with a small, separate I at the center, a me that was slighted, a mine that was taken. The Stoics saw this as the root of most trouble. And they pointed toward a radical shift. Instead of identifying with that temporary storytelling ego, you could identify with something deeper, your capacity for reason. Your share in the universal intelligence, the logos that connects all rational beings. This isn't a mystical vanishing act, it's a practical reorientation. You start to see your thoughts, your emotions, even your personal history, not as the essence of who you are, but as passing phenomena, like clouds moving across the sky of your awareness. The sky stays clear and untouched no matter what weather passes through. The Stoics spoke of an inner daemon, a guiding principle. This wasn't a private soul in the modern sense. It was a fragment of the cosmic logos, the rational order of the universe. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this. He wrote that your mind is part of the whole. That nothing which happens according to nature can be evil for a part of it. When you feel isolated or wronged or afraid, you've forgotten your connection. You've shrunk down to just the personal story, and reconnecting to that shared reason is the source of an unshakable peace, because your worth is no longer tied to the fragile, changing story of me. It's grounded in your participation in something vast and enduring. You can practice this in the heat of a moment. In an argument, when someone criticizes you harshly, the egoic story screams, "I am being attacked. My worth is on trial." The shift is to observe the event from that wider sky. You note, a judgment is being expressed, words are being spoken. You don't have to agree with the words, but you can receive them as information about the other person's perspective, not as a verdict on your eternal soul. This creates a buffer of calm. You can respond or not respond from a place of principle, not from a wounded self that needs to strike back or consider a failure. The egoic self wraps itself in the story, "I am a failure." It personalizes the event into an identity. From the Stoic perspective, you observe, an action did not yield the desired result. A skill needs development. The event is a point of data in the universe. Your capacity to learn from it, to adapt, to try again, that's your share of the universal intelligence in action. You haven't failed as a being, you've encountered feedback on a specific action. So here's a quiet invitation for your day. Can you observe your thoughts and feelings today as if they were weather patterns passing through, not defining you? The next time frustration arises, instead of thinking, "I am so frustrated," try noting frustration is present. See if you can feel the difference. In the first, you are the storm. In the second, you are the space in which the storm temporarily appears. That space is your truest self. It's where you find the ultimate detachment, and with it, a profound and unbreakable connection to everything. Stoic detachment isn't about stepping back from life. It's about being more fully inside it. We've gone through a quiet shift in thinking, starting with that basic filter, what's up to you, what isn't. Then the idea of embracing your fate creatively. Then the daily work of anchoring yourself in the present. Each piece builds an inner fortress, a space of steady reason. And from there, you can meet the world with clarity, not fear. That's the freedom the Stoics talked about, not freedom from your circumstances, freedom inside them. The freedom to choose your response, to hold outcomes lightly but put your effort in completely, to see other people as they are, not how you want them to be. To find stillness not in a quiet room but in the focus of your own attention. This path doesn't lead to isolation. It creates a deeper connection, more resilient. To your work, to others, to the whole project of being human. Epictetus said it simply. He said, "Free is the person who lives as they wish, who can't be forced, whose impulses aren't troubled, whose desires are fulfilled." That freedom isn't won by changing the world. It's won by mastering the one thing you actually can. Your own mind. So as we finish, think of this not as an ending, but as an invitation to start. Which of these ideas felt most like a key, like it could turn in a lock you've been carrying? Was it the practice of loving your fate, or the daily check on your own judgments? Share your thought in a comment. I read everyone. And if you want to keep going with this kind of practical wisdom, subscribe for more on living with purpose, with peace. Real strength was never about building walls. It's found in this poised, compassionate way of moving through the world, utterly engaged.